OSLC indoors gives you the ability to create, read, update, and delete requirements. Let's take a look at the ability to create resources. The final service on the diagram is the creation factory, which is a URL to which you can post the RDF XML to create new resources. There are two types of creation factories indoors, one for requirements. Let's have a little look. Creation factory. There's one for the collection creation and one for the requirements creation. If we want to create a requirement, this is the URL that we want. So let's go ahead and create a requirement. So I'm going to copy the URI for the creation factory. I'm going to open up a new instance of the advanced REST client and paste in the creation factory. I'm going to change my get to a post, and this means I now have to deliver a payload, and this is what I put the RDF XML for my new requirement. Now the easiest, quickest way to get the RDF XML for the requirements is to use an existing one and modify it. So I'm just going to do a quick query, copy, and I will do a quick query just to get some requirements. So let's have a little look at this one. So I'm gonna create a new requirement that looks a bit like this one. So here we go. So operator state assessment. The system shall be able to determine the physical status of the operator. Let's say I want a new requirement which is a bit like that one, and I'm just going to change some of the parameters. So this is my creation factory. I'm going to go ahead and paste that all in there. Let's just make that a little bit bigger. And this new requirement is going to determine the emotional state of the operator. Now all I need to do is just change the content type to application RDF XML. If it's not there, then I just have to add that here in my form. So I have to set content type, just needs to be application RDF XML. If you don't do that, you'll get parsing errors. Now when I do a send, if it works correctly, it should say response does not contain any data. I can now check that this has worked by going back into my ADCOS requirements folder, and I will now see I've got two requirements of the same name. If I go into the bottom one, I can now see a requirement which says the system shall be able to determine the emotional state of the operator. Of course, if you're going to develop this yourself in a consumer application, you need to create this RDF XML yourself. If you're doing it with Leo, there'll be libraries to help you doing that, but if you're using another language, it will be up to you to create the RDF XML in a format that DAWs will understand. Let's have a look at updating a requirement. The procedure for updating a requirement is to send a put to the URI of the requirement with an XML payload of the requirement which contains the changes. First, we need to choose a requirement. So let's do a quick get on all of the requirements. I've got 13 now. The newest one that I've just made will be at the bottom. So if I just do a copy, create a new instance of the REST client, I will paste my requirement in, and it's operator state assessment. The system shall be able to determine the emotional state. So this is the new requirement we've just made. Let's suppose we want to update it so that the title represents the description. I forgot to do that when creating it. So easy enough. You just copy, or just click copy to clipboard, change the get to a put, and into the payload paste your RDF XML with your new title. So operator emotional state assessments. There are a few other things you have to do. You have to add some new headers. One is the content type. So you need to change that to application, or just copy paste this quicker. But you also need to add an e-tag header. So put the words if match. Now, when you did the get on the requirement, you'll notice you'll have an etag parameter here. This means I'm dealing with the version of the requirement that I think I'm dealing with. So every time you do an update to a requirement, a new etag is generated. And I have to pass that back when I do an update, so the doors knows which requirements I'm referring to. If somebody, whilst I'm doing this, was to update the requirements, a new etag would be generated, and my etag would be out of date, and this would prevent me from updating a requirement and overwriting somebody else's changes. I know nobody else is working on this requirement, so I'm confident now it'll work. So I've made my change, I've put the headers, I've changed it to a put, and now when I do a send, response does not contain any data. And I can verify this works by getting the URL of my requirements and having a look. And I can see here the operator emotional state has been updated. And I can see this indoors if I do a refresh. Operator emotional state assessment. My update has gone through. The final thing to discuss is how to delete a requirement using OSLC. So let's say I've changed my mind and I don't want to have this requirement here, and I don't want to delete it using doors. I want to do it using OSLC. So let's go back to my REST client. This should be the URL for my requirements. Just do a get. There we go. Operator emotional state. Brilliant. Let's delete it. So open up a new instance, paste the URL of the requirement. I only need the two basic headers, change it to a delete, and send. Response does not contain any data. Let's see if it was deleted. Do a refresh. Add cost requirements. There we go. Operator emotional state assessment has been deleted.
Thanks for watching. I hope it was interesting and that you now understand a bit more about OSLC and what it can offer. If you wish to develop your own consumer application to interact with doors, you should now understand which steps must be implemented to allow your tool to interact with doors. In theory, these steps should be the same regardless of which requirement provider you are using. How you make use of the information and services that you get with OSLC is up to you or your company's engineering processes and practices. Stay tuned for more videos. Bye bye.